Right, so with MWC just around the corner, we are firmly in smartphone season, and many brands decide to launch their new flagships alongside the event, and OPPO, with this here Find X5 Pro, are no different. I've been playing around with it for the last few days, so I wanted to give you a little bit more information than you might have already seen from your standard unboxing and first impressions videos of my experience using this phone in the time my SIM has been plonked firmly in this device. And spoiler alert, in a lot of ways, this phone can go toe-to-toe with the very best, the likes of the Galaxy S22 Ultra. It's the real deal. Subscribe if you like this sort of content and want to see more, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you want live updates from MWC next week, because the tickets to Barcelona are booked. Right, so OPPO are one of the companies who have benefited from the current Huawei situation. Huawei were growing such a strong global smartphone presence that they were absorbing huge sales numbers from their competitors, the likes of Samsung, for example. But the fact that Huawei are now pretty much flexing with one arm tied behind their backs due to the Google ban, it means quite simply that even though there are ways of using Huawei smartphones without the out-of-box Google services experience, their reach in the West has significantly been hindered. Now, this obviously is a huge negative for Huawei and their subsequent customers. But as one door closes, another opens, right? Now, although OPPO were already a huge brand in their own right, there's no doubt they've profited from this situation. Of course, once you have those new customers, you need to make sure your product is good. And on the whole, OPPO have done a fantastic job. The Find X series of phones, for example, have been one of the most inventive, bleeding-edge set of devices available to buy. And the Find X5 Pro is no different. Hugely powerful with the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon HM1 chip and 12GB of RAM that can be upped to 19GB using virtual RAM. Just getting crazy at this point. I do wish that they had included an option to have larger internal storage from the 256 that's available, or the inclusion of an SD card slot, which is weirdly available on the budget or light model. But the 256GB should be enough for most people, and as well as brute strength, this thing is a $1 billion work of art. Available in either black, like this one here, or white, the ceramic material looks absolutely gorgeous. I personally love ceramic on smartphones, as not only is it twice as durable as strengthened glass and better for reducing scratches, but also it just feels seriously premium in the hand. One feature of the build that's really clever is the Smart Antenna 3.0 tech, which is a 360-degree antenna system that works out how you're using your phone, either upright and scrolling, for example, or sideways gaming, again as an example, and adjusts where the signal is being received from, so areas that are blocked are not used, for faster and more reliable connection. Dual 5G SIM slots and more 5G bands for more coverage. Now, you will notice the OPPO and Hasselblad text on the rear panel, more on that shortly, and OPPO have continued where they left off with the Find X3 series when it comes to the rear camera integration, in a sense of evolution and not revolution.
I evolve, but I don't revolve.
And that's certainly not a negative like its predecessor. The X5 Pro is absolutely stunning. So the same fluid-like slopes up to the lenses, and the only real difference being, but this is quite key, there is this 75-degree crater-shaped camera module where the bottom is angled to apparently better fit your index finger when holding the phone. It's meant to eliminate smudges from your finger on the lens, and not that I had a massive issue with that on the Find X3 Pro. It is a nice touch, and I quite like the kind of non-symmetrical look to it. It looks very futuristic. The outer lens material is made of glass. Some smartphones, even in flagship territory, still use plastic, and this can, amongst other things, help with color accuracy and reducing haloing, for example. But camera design is all well and good, right? It doesn't really matter if the actual camera doesn't perform very well. And there's some real pros here, and also a couple of cons that you'll probably need to know about. First, in terms of camera specs, we have a triple camera array, 50 megapixel primary wide, 50 megapixel ultra wide, and a 30 megapixel telephoto, and all three lenses can capture 1 billion colors. The ultra wide angle has a 110-degree field of view, which is actually not quite as wide as a lot of its competitors, so you will be able to fit slightly less into the scene, but there is next to nothing in terms of distortion, and being high 50 megapixel, the details you can capture are vast. Amazing if you want to blow the image up or crop parts of the shot. Now, the telephoto lens, surprisingly, being a really high-end flagship, is still only 2x optical zoom. I personally would love to have seen a periscope lens, for example, 5-10 times optical, but according to OPPO and their research team, when they've asked you guys, the consumer, the idea of focusing more on the ultra wide seems to have been a higher priority over focusing on zoom. Let me know what you think in the comments. Which area would you have preferred to Which area would you have preferred them to focus on? Now, there is 5-axis optical image stabilization, and this can be felt when taking quick snaps of friends or pets when there is little time to set yourself, still maintaining that nice sharp focus, and should help in low light, for example, when you have longer exposure times. And speaking of low light, OPPO have focused very heavily on low light performance, photos, and in particular, video. There is a 4K Ultra Night video mode providing superior noise reduction, color reproduction, and higher dynamic range. So really looking to reduce the grainy nature to the dark areas and also keeping the highlights nice and crisp. And for those of you who like to film in next to no light, there's also a ultra dark video mode where you can film in as low as just 5 lux, which is the equivalent of a pitch black room with 5 candles 1 meter away. OPPO are also claiming that a lot of the improvements this year are down to the new MariSilicon X imaging MPU that sits alongside the Qualcomm chip and focuses on camera performance. And this is only aided by their brand new 3-year partnership with Hasselblad. Now, just to clarify, this partnership with the well-renowned camera developer is only on a software basis currently, but that's not to say further down the line, within the 3 years, we may see some hardware tweaks as well, and that would be very nice to see. But in terms of the software upgrades, we have a new Hasselblad Pro mode, providing full controls over the settings for optimum results, a Hasselblad style UI, including the famous orange shutter button and shutter sound. You also have access to a few master styles, providing specific looks to your image, and there is a Hasselblad X-Pan mode, which recreates a vintage shooting experience reminiscent of the iconic Hasselblad X-Pan series of cameras. They were famed for providing these super cinematic, ultra-wide images, almost like 2 photos stitched in the middle together, in a unique 65:24 aspect ratio. We love that kind of look when we go to the movie theatre, but one look that would go amiss in a movie theatre is this ugly mug being snapped by the 32 megapixel selfie shooter. Now, this front camera, amongst others, has this really cool new feature where it can automatically detect how many people are in your shot. So if it's just you, it'll be on 80 degrees, and if there's more than you, if there's more than one of you, if there's a group of you, for example, it will automatically switch to a 90-degree field of view, so you can fit more in your shot. Now, you can manually override this if you wanted to capture more of the background in a selfie and it's just you, but yeah, that's a really nice little tweak. In addition, OPPO claim more texture, more detail, and more dynamic range, and overall the colour science across photos and videos seem to have had a really nice reform, and images and videos really do pop. And speaking of colour, ColorOS 12.1 with Android 12 underneath. What a segue that was. ColorOS 12 has seen some really nice upgrades from 11, with a focus on decluttering and making settings and apps easier and more eye-catching to use. Text and icons have been spaced out and scaled up, everything is much more colour coordinated, and there are some really lovely themes and wallpapers to customise your home screen. And speaking of customisation, you can, amongst other things, create 3D emojis, choose from a whole host of always-on display features, and there's an improved lineup of privacy settings that can tickle your fancy. Now, navigating ColorOS is aided by the fact we have here one of the best smartphone displays of 2022, no doubt. It has a DisplayMate A+ rating, although which flagship smartphone doesn't these days? They all seem to have a pretty amazing display at this point, but it's there, with Corning Gorilla Glass Victus on the top and a 6.7-inch WQHD Plus curved AMOLED 120Hz panel underneath. 1300 peak brightness, 10-bit color depth, HDR10 Plus, and it's LTPO, so we can go from 120 to just 1 if it needs to reduce I was going to say refrain and reduce at the same time, and it just came out like that. To help reduce battery consumption was what I was trying to say, but there's a really cool feature here where the display can actually split into sections. So if you have Windows open, you've got a WhatsApp or YouTube or whatever, and those different sections would need a different refresh rate for better consumption for you. different parts of the screen can change the refresh rate accordingly. So one part can be 1 Hz and the other can be 120, for example. And that's a really, really ingenious feature, again, to help reduce battery consumption, but still give you the optimum performance. Of course, you shouldn't really worry about battery at this point when we have a 5000 mAh battery cell and SuperVooc 80-watt fast charging, which can charge to 50% in just 12 minutes. 12 minutes and you've got half a battery. I mean, that's pretty impressive. You also have 50-watt AirVooc wireless flash charge, which is 0 to 100% in about 50 minutes. And OPPO have also stated that their new battery health engine smart charging technology still provides around 80% of the original battery's ability after 1600 charging cycles, which is the equivalent of about 4.5 years charging your phone every day to still have 80% of the original battery ability. The reason why I think this is quite important is many people worry about the battery life over the duration of a couple of years when you are using the new fast charging technologies. It should hopefully put your mind at rest a little bit. Now, if you are going to be testing that battery with heavy gaming sessions, etc., the multi-tier cooling system should help. There's a 75% larger vapor chamber covering that battery and SoC, and a 3D graphene film covering the motherboard and charging coil, and a dedicated ultra-thin graphene film for the screen and display IC. Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, IP68 rated, stereo speakers wrap up one of the most complete smartphones on the planet right now. Is it better than the likes of the Galaxy S22 Ultra, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, Xiaomi 12 Pro, for example? Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love, as always, to hear your thoughts, and I will be hopefully doing a lot of comparisons coming very soon. Click here to watch my impressions of the Galaxy S22 Ultra, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, for example. And remember to subscribe if you like this sort of content. It is free to do. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Like I said, if you're interested in live updates from MWC next week, I will be there, and I will be telling you what's new and what's hot and what's not. That's it, mate. That's what we've got. We're done. We gombies. Says BYT, peace out.
Do just what you want.